Welcome back for another episode of The Voice of Generation Climate, The Voice of Gen Z. Today we have with us a true Gen Z baller, Mansi Shah. Mansi has worked with a bunch of brands, and helped them adopt a more sustainable pathway through the last couple of years. She has worked with behaviour in the past. She had her own brand called Keep It Sustainable Stupid, KISS. Check it out on Instagram. And now works with very many enterprises to actually help them kick off a sustainable pathway so that we all can have a cleaner, safer, fairer, better future. Mansi, what a pleasure to have you on The Voice of Gen Z today.
Thank you for having me, Andy. Excited to be here. And
appreciate you being here. Let's actually start off with, what makes you a Gen Z baller? What's your claim to being in the sustainable space? What was your pathway? Tell us your history and your journey in any shape or form that you'd like.
Yeah. You have 2 hours?
Sure.
5 hours. 5 hours. It was quite serendipitous when I got into sustainability. It was not at all planned, like any good path is. And I was working as a footwear designer with Metro Brands. It's anyone who knows of Metro in India, it's one of the largest shoe retailers, and selling all kinds of shoes for all kinds of people all over India. And I was hired as Metro's first footwear designer in 60 years, which was a big deal back then. And while I was designing these shoes and living my dream, I came across this documentary called The True Cost. And it became a very popular documentary for a lot of people in fashion back then because it exposed the fashion industry supply chain. And it showed, the actual cost of a t-shirt, which was quite less. It was like maybe like $2 or maybe $1 for a t-shirt, which was being sold for $10 or $12 at some of the most popular brands. So that documentary just shifted my perception about what fashion was doing and what I was doing within fashion. And I had no one to turn to after watching that documentary. So I was literally just researching, reading everything I could about what sustainable fashion meant, what are sustainable textiles. And I came across a lot of interesting brands outside of India, not in the US mainly, like Patagonia, Allbirds.
What year was this?
This was 2016. Yeah, and so interestingly, before that, I was doing my master's in the Netherlands. So I was studying to be a footwear designer in the Netherlands. And, the Dutch are all about minimalism. And it was quite funny coming from Delhi, living in a small town in Walwijk, where people would just make their own foods, buy their own groceries, use public transport. Barely anyone had their own cars. And I was like, shit, dude, like in Delhi, everyone has a driver, 8 servants, everyone eats a lot of food at night, like at 10:30 people have
gluttonous and shameful with our existence of overconsumption.
Yeah. It's like the rich live the same everywhere. So anyway, that I think that's where the sustainability bit started. The seed was planted in Holland. I just didn't know it yet, but after I came back, it kind of all came together and it made a lot of sense. So it's been like 5 years of educating people about what sustainability means through any medium I can, through the brands I work with. After leaving Metro, I actually started in organic food and not sustainable fashion because I was staying in Bandra, in Bombay, and everywhere around me, people were becoming conscious about their diets. Cancer was becoming more commonplace, so people were willing to pay more for organic produce, but sustainable fashion was still in the background. So I joined a founder, this very visionary sort of founder. He wanted to create the whole foods for India. Sourcing produce directly from Indian farmers and then selling them to consumers. And so I joined him on this journey, and I was essentially responsible for improving the brand image and talking to consumers, educating them. And while I was doing that, I was actually sensing and feeling and thinking about what sustainability meant. And I was questioning the consumers. I was asking them about why would they pay more for organic food versus regular food, or what was their decision to switch to using organic produce. That interest in what consumers want when it comes to sustainability has continued since then. Like it kind of became my USP of sorts, my brand USP. Okay, what do consumers want? How do we tell better stories for sustainability, and how do we engage them? How do we make it more exciting? And then that led to my doing when Bohico or Bombay Hemp Company hired me. They hired me to lead a textile division called Hemp Fabric Lab, and the idea was to change perceptions around hemp fabric, make it more exciting than cotton, and engage consumers in new and exciting ways. And yeah, so and after that, I started Keep It Sustainable Stupid. So it's been the same, since it's been just like this exciting journey of making climate science fun, making people more excited and engaged. Yeah.
That's a really, really awesome story. And it's really cool that you came in from the route of fashion and then went deeper into sustainable fashion, and then found your way into working with a company that is not just fashion, but materials overall, right? The hemp company has hemp-based materials. And then from there, understanding enough consumer insights to build a brand called Keep It Sustainable Stupid.
Yeah.
Which would really focus on how anybody can adopt sustainable solutions in their own life, right? And it's like a media effort that you kicked off. Shout out to it. Check it out on Instagram again. And then I think you found your pathway into working with organizations, traditional organizations, that then would consult you and say, hey, Mansi, like, what can we do better, right? So the dots actually do connect when you look back, in a very, very interesting way. And it's really cool because I think all of us have such different pathways for how we entered the field of climate and sustainability. And there are millions of those pathways for each of the Gen Z people out there. There's no one clear, straight answer.
No, there is. No, there isn't. And in fact, I often wonder myself, if sustainability hadn't become a thing, what would we all be doing in our careers, right? What would you be doing if sustainability wasn't a thing, and if everyone was already responsible in their businesses and sustainable? We didn't have to have a chat about this.
Yeah.
What kind of a job would you be doing right now?
Maybe working with planes, because I love planes, and that's what I used to do before I went into this field. And I left only because I felt like this has to be solved in this decade. Right? We have to solve a climate fight. So do whatever it takes for 10 years, multiple shots. If we didn't have to do that, I'd probably be working in the plane industry or chasing some other passion.
And obviously, you're bringing your strengths from your previous work experiences to Climes, right? You're not just, maybe your strength is in business development, business strategy, or sales, or whatever. Some students write to me asking for mentorship or asking for career advice, and I just tell them, focus on your skills, like keep doing what you're doing, and then find companies or people who share your values around what sustainability means. It's not just, I want a climate job because it's cool, sexy, and exciting, but more, this company, I love animals and I want to save animals, and I would love to work with a plant-based company because it aligns with my values, and I'm already a great marketer. So what can I do at this company?
Yeah, so, I'm already really good at this and I really enjoy this. Now, how can I leverage it to add more value into making the planet more sustainable, right? Because I think both of us have come across designers, engineers, marketers, people from all sorts of different professions who technically would never have any climate or sustainability background, because that's not a thing. Climate or sustainability it's a cause to be solved, right? Yeah. So you can come in from anywhere, find your feet within it, and then find other people who share similar values and who share a similar vision. And as long as those two are there, right, similar values and similar vision, that's all it takes.
So the thing is, a lot of actual sustainability professionals are people who have degrees in environmental engineering. They're hardcore engineers or they're scientists. These are the two, or they're farmers and waste pickers and people who don't have a formal degree. These people know what true sustainability means. It's not a McKinsey analyst who knows what sustainability
means. Exactly. I fully agree with that. When people ask me now, hey, like, do I have a right to be in the climate space? I'm like, what does that even mean? Like, does it mean you have to have a degree? What is a climate sustainability degree? So it's exactly what you're talking about, right? The best builders and operators that I've come across in the space, across alternative proteins, sustainable fashion, energy efficiency, hydroponics, you name it. They have no background in climate or sustainability, right? They came in from one angle of like what they were already really good at, and then they brought it into solving this cause, right? And then the folks you're talking about on the other side who have a legitimate degree in the space, like a sustainability degree from a climate school, with the exception of Terra, they're also important, but more in terms of market research, right? Like the analysts at a McKinsey, right? So I think there's both sides of it. There's the charted pathway you can find into it, and then there's the completely uncharted.
Yeah. No, there isn't. In fact, I was trying to upskill myself and thinking about how I want to do that. What should I invest my money on? I think it's also important to think about what kind of ROI you'll get out of that education, whether a Harvard extension program is for vanity metrics or is it actually going to add value to you. So there are the main different programs that you have to research on that will give you what you're looking for out of your job. And if you just, it's fine. Even if you're doing it for vanity metrics, even if you want the Harvard stamp, go for it. There's no restrictions there. But know that if you have the money to splurge, do it. If you don't have the money to splurge, don't do it for the name. Just go for a place where which makes sense, business sense and career sense and all that.
Yeah, so that's great advice for somebody who's thinking about, their next career, and they could be anybody, anywhere, sitting and listening to this. But there's a method, there's a way to get started, which is just take the plunge, find people with similar values, share a similar vision, and you're good to go, irrespective of what background you come from. And I think now is the single best time to be going into the climate tech space or sustainability space, because there's so many companies that you can actually find that alignment with. That's for somebody who's looking to get their career started. How about consumers? What can consumers do to start living more sustainably? And I think you've spent so much time on in the last couple of years, right? Understanding consumer behavior. How have you seen that evolve from pre-2016, the 2016 to 2022 period, and now going forward, right, 2023 and beyond? Let's break it up into those three segments. So before you got into it, in what you've seen so far, and what do you think is going to happen now, consumer behavior-wise?
When I think about consumer behaviors, I mainly look at myself first. I reflect on myself as a consumer. So first of all, you need to understand your own psychology, like human psychology 101, right? Like what are people doing? Why are they doing what they're doing? And a lot of times you can't explain why people do what they do. There's no rationale behind why people shop the way they shop, as much as growth marketers and performance marketers and neuroscientists, neuromarketing, everyone's trying to hack into the human brain. They are getting somewhere, and sure, there can be a formula that you can create for a marketing campaign that might work in order for a consumer to spend more. But will they keep coming back for the product is the next question. So anyways, before I got into sustainability, I didn't know about it. So nobody around me was speaking about it. We were more concerned with the usual young people stuff, right? Like partying, going out, what should I wear? How do I look good? You're young, dumb, and broke, and you don't care about anything but yourself. So that's where all of us were. And I think as some form of mindfulness crept in, and then education. I think education was a big lever in my thinking differently about how I shop. Like the more I started talking to people, the more I became aware of what I was buying, started reading a lot. That kind of brought about a shift. So, like I said, I think in 2016, when I got in from metro brands, where all conversations were around how do we increase our sales month after month after month. That was all there was to it. Like, we want to make money. How do we make it? And how do we make it fast with cheap products? So from there to getting deep into the organic food atmosphere, where everyone was talking about, oh, my mom suffered from cancer, or this is what happened to my sister. It became personal. It became really personal, And I would literally go every Sunday. There was a farmer's market that would happen on Sundays in Bandra. And I would go there every weekend, talk to founders who were selling their produce, ask them a million questions because I like asking a million questions. And ask them a million questions about their product, how people were buying it, why were they buying it, and then talk to consumers who were trying to buy these products and ask them why they were willing to pay more for these products. And they would just, I remember some of them just shrugging their shoulders and saying, because I like it, so people also don't know, right? Like I've tried getting feedback from a lot of people, consumers in India, even when I was at Metro Shoes, like, why do you buy this? What makes you want to spend that extra buck on this? But people are like, I don't know, I just like it. I don't know. It feels good.
Something is a subconscious decision. It's not a conscious decision.
Social proofing is a huge...
Word of mouth is like the best way to spend any product in India.
We do, and we trust people we know.
Trust-based, for sure.
It's very, very trust-based. So there's so many brands now. There's so much noise out there. So how do you differentiate yourself? And that's where social proofing, word of mouth, trust, loyalty, all of these come into play.
I think that insight is super amazing, which is, it wasn't really sustainability overall. It was kind of organic foods, right? That was the wedge for people to start thinking around their own diets and think of that as a sustainable choice. Because before organic foods, there wasn't really any other sustainable choice people were making. Either you were born and you were already living sustainably, right? Because a lot of Indian homes have very sustainable practices. But the active consumer choice to say, I want a more sustainable product, that really started with organic food. Yeah, and I think that kind of became a wedge to create more awareness, like you're saying, mindfulness. That, okay, I should treat my body better and maybe treat the environment better. And then from there, that similar audience actually wanted more, right? I think that audience is the same audience that started getting the sustainable fashion. Same audience that started getting the sustainable energy, right? Like putting solar rooftops on their homes. The same audience that started also then later going into alternative proteins and meats. So I think the first wedge, kind of interestingly enough, did come from the organic food movement, if you want to call it that. And I don't know how much it was clean and legit, but it was definitely early in the game before a lot of climate tech solutions started making their way into people's homes. For example, I wanted to put a solar rooftop on my house, right? Very obvious choice. Heard about this big solar boom, made sense. Started looking around, very, very, very hard to find it, right? And when I started looking around people who've done it on their own homes, very, very, very hard to find people who've done it too. But when I finally got that solution implemented, and it went live, within a month, 6 of my neighbors all went solar as well because they could see it. They just wanted to know who did it. They got the bill for it, and they asked me how hard was it to, use and maintain. And I said nothing at all. They come and do that too. And I think solar became a solution in that phase, right? Started finding it in people's homes. Alternative protein now is sustainable fashion for the last 3-4 years is. So if you put it on a chronological order and actually backtrack even before solar, what was there? It was like composting and organic foods. Right?
Interesting. Yeah, I wouldn't have, I don't know what happened when, but I see what you're trying to say here. And I think when I was part of the whole organic food movement in Bombay, people were switching because, like I said, because of cancer. There was no other reason for them to switch. Like, you don't want to die. So they didn't have a choice. It was also being propagated through some religious leaders where Sattvic living or Ayurvedic living is the better way. And so it wasn't like, oh, let's come up with a cool organic food brand and now this person will buy it because it's cool and it's cool to be organic. No, not at all. Nobody cares. In fact, even now, consumers, for them, sustainability is last in the order. It's more price, value, all of the usual metrics, health, like status, prestige, these things come first, then sustainability. So in organic food, it was more, I have cancer, that's why I'm buying more for organic food. And then eventually the younger, cooler crowd was like, oh, organic food is cool because it doesn't contain pesticides and we have the money to spend, so why not?
Yeah.
and the same way.
For brands to sell themselves as organic food, and cool for people to start buying organic food, because it basically became a status game.
Yeah, it's interesting how that happens, right? Like when Impossible Meat came or Beyond Meat came, they I was watching a YouTube video about how consumers respond to regular meat hamburgers and Beyond Meat hamburgers, and they couldn't tell the difference.
Yeah.
But some of them, when they learned it was cultivated meat, they felt grossed out. But then some other people did not feel grossed out. They actually thought it was cool. So
Premium. They thought it's premium. It's cool because it's like the new frontier. I'm going to be looked at differently if I eat this like new fashionable product, right?
yeah, so it's very different.
There's an audience that wants to be ahead of the curve, right? The early adopters always want to scream and shout about it.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah. But and also in the case of the rooftop that you're talking about, right? Your neighbors became curious about it because they were probably already hearing about it from someone or the other, and then they must have seen you install it, and then it must have looked cool to have a solar rooftop.
Exactly.
And so then that social proofing came into play. Oh, Anirudh has this, even we want to. Then it also becomes competitive, by the way. Yeah, and I was reading this. I was reading an article on installing solar rooftops and how more consumers are opting for it because their neighbor has it, not because they want it.
That's how movements start, right? That's how revolutions start. So, okay, very, very interesting point, because I think that's what encapsulates Gen Z. So when we say generation climate, the idea is it's not just Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z, boomers, who are putting up their hand and saying, I care. And I want to live more sustainably and like more in sync with the planet. It's actually anybody and everybody out there, could age irrespective, gender irrespective, sexual orientation irrespective. It could be anybody. And we've actually noticed that because of Climes being like a barometer. The fact that we're on different checkouts across the internet, we get to see like who's actually opting in and who's declaring that I care. And that it's not a demography or an ethnography, it's a psychography. We're realizing it's people across all sorts of society.
Right.
That psychology of being Gen Z is so fascinating, right? It could be a 10-year-old or an 85-year-old. And a lot of them are doing it in this stack of like, firstly, caring for environmental value. Because the early adopters are actually doing it, say I care. But then the larger number of people are doing it for social value, right? I want to talk about it too. Because we are a nation we're a very status-driven nation. And why not? Like, you do good, talk about it. You should be able to share the story. Yeah. And then there's definitely a last set, which will come later, I think, which is the economically incentivized. We haven't gotten there yet, but definitely when we really, really want to make mass-scale climate action happen, there has to be an economic incentive to do so too. Like it did with solar, right? Firstly, the early adopter folks did it, environmentally. Then socially, if I did it, my neighbor also wanted to do it and then talk about it. And then his neighbor and beyond, who will do it because it just makes economic sense. It's cheaper than like a coal-powered, energy supply.
Yeah.
I think that's a similar stack that's happening for very many climate solutions, including electric mobility and others, which we'll also talk about. I know you write Blue Smart.
Yeah, love Blue Smart. Shout out. Do you what kind of feedback have you got for clients? So, what do people say about it?
So, by design, what did we aim for? And then I'll give you a sample of what feedback we get. We've been of this opinion that if climate has to be solved, solutions exist. But if these solutions are too hard to adopt into your value chain as an individual or as an enterprise, it's not going to happen. So how do you simplify it, right? And how do you make it more bite-sized? So how do you make it really small enough to do, big enough to matter? And if we can just break climate action into very, very small pieces, and then people can actually start doing them, maybe that puts you on a pathway to ramp up to solution number 2, 3, 4, 5, and beyond. Right? So what was the first bare bones, first principles climate action piece you can do? It's an intent, declaration that I care. And for us, again, what is that intent and declaration of I care? It's, am I willing to see my footprint on a product that I'm consuming, like a flight, food product, fashion product, personal care product? See it, and then will I actually act on it by saying, okay, here's a couple bucks more. because I'm going to collect some carbon credit in the form of client's credits.
Yeah.
Because then I have the choice of which project I want to put that into and enable financing. So that intent of declaration is so simple because it's in your normal day-to-day life. You don't have to go out of your way. And that kind of comes from, like, you know, the whole power of habit thing, which is you want to turn something into a habit, make it obviously required, easily accessible, economically viable, and fun to do. If tomorrow Mansi was not a climate, aficionado or a sustainability like Gen Z warrior, and I came to you and I said, Mansi, why are you not driving an electric car? Why are you not riding Blue Smart? Why are you not composting all the food waste from your kitchen? Those are still relatively bigger changes to make. To dump your Uber and then to go to a Blue Smart. That one's relatively easy, but still, it's like deleting an app, getting a new app. To start composting, you have to get a compost pit. You have to learn how to compost. Other solutions are even harder, right? Like hydroponically grown plants and then putting that into your habit. Those are all very, very big decisions. So we were seeing a big gap in people going and promoting those solutions to the Gen Z audience that's already out there, but not breaking through, right? And the not breaking through was happening because people don't want to go out of their way to change their behavior. If you just slide it in though in like a really seamless way and make it super easy to do, maybe people will actually do it. Because at the end of the day, at least we are optimistic and we believe in the better angels of humanity's nature. We all have good intent and we do want to live more sustainably with the planet. So that's kind of how we designed the Climes, value chain.
Yeah.
And since we started sliding into people's lives, we've had 100,000 people, more than 100,000 people till now who've actually bought one client. That's 100,000 more than earlier, right?
Yeah.
We heard so much of people don't care, people don't pay, nobody will contribute. But people actually do. It's a question of bad design because of which they don't do it. It's a question of them not trusting the system because there's lack of transparency in the way that capital is going. You solve all those pieces, you'll definitely get a lot of demand and a lot of action in our country.
Yeah.
So just to sum up that thought of like how we came at it, it was identify people in every household as who's a Gen Z, champion. And then be able to introduce second and third and fourth solution that are also sitting ready with other climate tech companies.
Yeah. Who's like out of all these audiences, who's most excited about Climes? What age group are you seeing? And what kind of a person is actually understands what you're trying to do and is excited to pay for it?
Yeah, great. That's a great question. So when we first started this, we didn't have the whole Gen Z thing. We broke it up into 3 different categories. So we said 18 to 24-year-old. And funnily enough, we called it the Greta Thunberg audience.
Yeah.
It was a 24 to 30. To profile it, right? And then 24 to 30, which was like yuppies.
Yeah.
And then 30 and beyond, which we called young urban millennials and parents, right? Young parents. And we said maybe this is the 3 sets that will really, really care. And the plan was always to start in India and then go global with our market. But then when we put our product out there, we didn't actually nudge toward any one particular audience because we don't reach people directly. We actually reach people through the brands we buy from. Okay. So if you are buying from Neiman's shoes, or if you are buying from Perfora, or you're buying from MakeMyTrip, the audience that buys from them is now our audience, and it's for them to declare who cares, right? So our entire notion of like segregated categories kind of went out of the window, and instead their audiences started self-segregating themselves into defining who cares. And now the sum of all of that, we've definitely gotten a lot of insight, right? Who's the kind of person who cares? It's the kind of person who has, in some form or the other, obviously heard about climate change. Is affected by rising sea levels. Very few people are so far in a very visible way, but it's going to increase. Forest fires, hurricanes, heat waves, locust attacks. A large percentage of humanity is affected in some way. Whether you live in Delhi, Bombay, Bangalore, Chennai, or anywhere in India, tier 2, tier 3, people are now far more aware than earlier, right? So that first feeling of awareness then translates into action when they see that it's an easy enough thing to do. And then they also get a choice, right? ये donation नहीं है, ये मेरा credit collection है और फिर I can decide Which project will get financed? And very interestingly enough, on the project financing side, we see how people vote also, right? Which project will get financed? A lot of them are geographically picking. If I'm in Karnataka and there's a forestry project in Karnataka, people are choosing that.
Right. So where is your demographic right now in India? A majority of them are coming from what part of India? Karnataka, Bombay.
We don't know that.
You don't know
we
that.
don't know that. Because geographically, we don't know where these people are. We just know that so far there's 100,000 people out there around the country. They could be anybody, anywhere.
Well, okay, so one question would be...
But then we know how they vote, Yeah.
Because
either they're buying the climb and then they're voting on which project will go into, which carbon removal project. Yeah. Or somebody else is buying a climb. Either a brand or an enterprise is buying the climbs and then rewarding people and distributing it. And saying, hey, you vote, right? So we know voting action is making very, very interestingly. Like waste to energy versus renewable energy versus forestry. Which ones do people have a preference for? Right? And that's super, super fascinating.
Wow. Yeah, there are so many. So I think I often think about this. Like we sit every day. We have 24 hours in a day. I think 16 hours out of those 24 hours are spent on work, 8 hours on work. The rest could be on traveling, depending on where you are. If you're in a city like Bangalore, Delhi, or Bombay, you're stuck in traffic basically for 2 hours or 4 hours every day, which is such a waste of your time. And then the rest of the time you're hanging out with friends or watching Netflix but we have time. Like it takes what? It takes through climbs. It would take someone a minute.
Yeah, 10 seconds, 10, 15 seconds. So just do that. In your normal action flow, just get started.
10 seconds to contribute 100 or 200 rupees or whatever towards a restoration project. 5 rupees to a restoration project in India. And if help me out with the math here because my math sucks. If at least 10,000 people do that, they contribute 5 rupees. That's 50,000 rupees. What kind of impact will that have on a mangrove in Bombay?
Yeah, so super interesting question because you've actually quantified in terms of number of people, amount of money moved, right? And how much impact does it directly have. So this will change based on use case by use case on the supply side. So let's pick forestry as an example. Right? Our cost, so the amount of financing we have to provide to get a sapling planted by one of our project developer partners is 200 rupees.
Okay.
Right? So 200 climbs will actually finance one full sapling planting. And 200 climbs equals 200 kilograms. So now if you reverse engineer from there, you could either get that from a Delhi to Chennai flight, right? Because the Delhi to Chennai flight is about 200 kilograms. So one flight, climbs collected, helps plant one tree. Or you could say, a delivery of your package on an e-commerce site comes out about 1 kilogram of carbon footprint, so you collect one climb. Either you buy it or the brand gives it to you. And if you collected one, you need 200 of those. So you're planting 0.5% of a tree with that one climb. And if 200 people do that on their deliveries, 200 people are cumulatively actually planting one sapling in a place. So the volumes can really add up, right? And you're doing democratized collective action, distributed collective action with full transparency and traceability, where people can track the capital flow. They can track the impact. Geospatially, we actually watch all the projects and we update it every month. And we get on-site reports every month from the project developers because that's their license to be in the marketplace. But they have to give updates, so that we can share it with all the different people who've actually supported it and keep that going. So we're kind of like the finance enabler and we're the monitor. We're the eyes in the sky and they're on the ground.
You're the morality police.
Yeah. You have to make sure the money flows and then it's used for the right purpose.
Yeah. There's obviously a lot of discussions around carbon offsets, which, we don't have to get into it right now, but some people say a tree is going to take 30 years for a tree to grow. And so why aren't we solving for it now? I think both are necessary. I think, you need the offsets and you need to mitigate existing emissions.
Yeah.
So
It's about 40 billion tons per year that we have to start avoiding, and another 10 billion tons per year that we have to remove that's already out there, like, per year. So that's going to come through a mix of carbon avoidance solutions and carbon removal. At Clients, we don't actually want to anchor on any one solution. What we want to do is create a competitive marketplace for supply side projects. If you're a high quality carbon removal project, you belong. You know, as long as you qualify with all the standards, and then people are actually choosing you and you're giving you updates, and you're planning future carbon removal, not just past. Because carbon offsets have largely been used to finance the past. How about future? So the projects that actually come on the supply side, you know, it's almost like you're setting yourself up for higher and higher quality. Because if you don't, people won't pick you, and then you'll be out of the marketplace, right? So
how do you so every project you're working on, these are highly protected? Like, what if a builder wants to pay a lot of money to destroy a mangrove to create real estate? We see that happening all the time. So
we haven't done mangrove yet. We're really interested in doing mangroves, you know, and like two use cases from now, because there's so much mangrove potential around our country. We have such a long coastline, right? And I think that blue carbon is going to be super, super exciting for us to start working on. But we don't directly own or operate the projects. So we always work with an independent partner, like a Say Trees, like a Farmers for Forests, like an Acacia or Asim Ventures.
These are non-profits.
And it's their job to actually do just that, right? Their job is to do the planting, maintenance, you know, reporting, verification. While we monitor it, if something were to happen 5 years later, let's say, you know, forest fire or a man-made disaster, like somebody comes and demolishes it, we have to design for that risk and create buffer pools. So we have not done this yet, but there's an entire concept of creation of extra amount of credit that you can draw down from to support your demand requirement. So you always create more supply than demand, and that's actually a very good thing.
In this case, it is for sure. That's great, man. That's good to know.
For sure, but it's really interesting that like we're seeing so many people now starting to care, and you know, earlier it was people like you who consciously went into the space. So you went from fashion to sustainable fashion and then beyond. But now we're starting to like identify them anywhere and everywhere, and that's super exciting, right? It's exciting in terms of how many opportunities there are to influence brands. Because if people start caring enough, brands that serve them will actually change their own ways, right? So have you seen that happen? Any example of a brand you really admire that just kind of changed their narrative, made sustainability part of their DNA?
Actually, I was reading a very interesting article on HBR about companies that have become profitable by embedding sustainability in their brand DNA. And these are not companies you would hear about. These are very, I would say, non-branded companies, but who are doing exceptional work in sustainability. So some of them would be, have you heard of Shree Cement?
Shree Cement, huge. It's huge.
Yeah, so publicly traded company, but it's not like Aditya Birla or Tata. It's not a brand that you know of. But Shree Cement, Gen Irrigation Industries,
water irrigation,
doing fantastic work, man. Like and that got me thinking about how when we hear about exciting new technologies in sustainability, you know, like direct air capture or green hydrogen or whatever, it's good, it's fine. It's because, you know, we are innovative creatures. We want to keep building, keep trying out new things, and people want new things all the time. But often the solutions for sustainability are so simple. They're so simple that nobody wants to talk about them because they don't sound very exciting and big and media worthy. You know, like nobody wants to say, I just turned off my tap and fixed the leak, and that's why I saved X million liters of water. No, but people want to hear, I bought this fancy, I got this fancy technology, and then that's how we save water. And like, and so it was an interesting study on how in most developing countries who lack finances, or not in the case of Shree Cement and Jain Industries, it wasn't just finances, but the willingness and understanding of the leadership team to think about their future supply chains. And so they had that long-term view of where they wanted their business to go and how they could save on costs by adopting more sustainable strategies. So it was a business sort of mindset they approached it with, because they were obviously looking at the balance sheets, but they willingly chose to make small changes in their company that would reduce their electricity, that would reduce their water usage, and eventually invest in more expensive technology once they saw the results of that. And then, therefore, they were able to give their shareholders amazing returns in a span of 10 years. So,
yeah, you said it super well. Sustainability in their DNA, right? If they embed it from day one or day 30, whenever they choose to start, right?
Yeah.
And then it becomes part of every decision. It actually leads to long-term, focus on people, planet, and profit, right? It all three in sequence, because there's this big misconception that more sustainable means more expensive, and that's actually very, very myopic. More sustainable almost always leads to economic gain and environmental gain, right? But people always look at it short term, and then they kind of get dissuaded by it. So I really like that you said if they have sustainability in the DNA, then the decision making comes from there. And then they actually end up benefiting in multiple ways, because sustainability is also now becoming a license to be in the marketplace. So it helps them with the policy, right? It helps them with attracting far better talent, because now people care to work at companies that are more sustainable, right? It helps them to actually attract a far better consumer audience in the base.
I agree. But I also say why they say sustainability is more expensive. And why that is. And I wouldn't say it's completely wrong to say that, because I worked with smaller brands like the Farmer's Store and Bombay Hem Company. So it was expensive to, let's say, procure certain items because we weren't ordering large quantities. Because we didn't want to waste those quantities. So whenever you're not placing orders like Aditya Birla in thousands of kilos, very large volumes, you automatically end up paying more. And also, so for us, it was like, okay, we don't want to waste our fabric, and we don't want to compromise on the quality, but the shipping cost is a lot for this fabric, and you have to have your margins as well. And we weren't even putting that, even our margins were low, because we didn't want to actually dupe consumers into paying more. So we tried our best to keep the prices as low as possible, but people would still, I think a lot of people did have issues with the price of our fabrics, but eventually they understood, because we were very transparent about how we were pricing our products. So that helped. I think that's where honest marketing comes into the picture, because if consumers are used to Amazon type deliveries, 1-day deliveries, 2-day deliveries, they're used to it, right? They're like, oh, we have this option. So why should I wait for the same product for 5 days if it looks the same, behaves the same? But they're not able to understand it's coming from a farm in some remote place in Uttarakhand, and the logistics are an issue. They're not a big company. So sustainability is expensive has often come from smaller brands, because smaller brands are, resource stressed, their margins are lower.
No economies of scale.
No economies of scale. But they are the ones who are trying their best to be sustainable. They're trying to give their best, but consumers are not able to understand. So then education comes into play. I think for us, for Bohiko, in fact, I think Bohiko changed the game for everyone in the cannabis industry, because they really educated people about what hemp was in India. And that's why they got back, Ratan Tata invested in them, Rajan Anandan invested in them. So, and it was the same story, I think, and Bohiko's tagline is also educate, elevate, and one more thing I'm forgetting. But education played a key role. So once we were able to educate consumers why certain things were expensive, they would buy it. The people who were actually interested and loved our quality, they would come back again and again. They didn't really care.
Yeah, it's the same early adopters, right? Early adopters will absorb the cost too, and then they'll validate it enough for the main market, mass market, right? And once that happens, it becomes mainstream, costs go down significantly. Long term, everybody benefits, right? Even on convenience, on great for the planet, on costs overall.
Yeah.
And I think that happens with every technology, whether it's solar, whether it's sustainable fashion, sustainable food, right? All of it. But I want to sum this up with something you brought up earlier, which is you just got to keep it simple. If you keep sustainability super simple, we're all going to have a golden future. And this is a good riff on your brand that you created too, which is KISS. Keep it sustainable, stupid.
Yeah.
But before I came across that, I always knew KISS as keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah.
Right? Because there's an acronym where whenever we have a habit of over complexifying things, keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah.
And keep it simple, stupid, keep it sustainable, stupid.
Yeah.
Both are a great way to sum up this conversation.
Yeah.
A lovely conversation, Mansi Shah. It's been a true pleasure having you on TVOGC, the Voice of Gen Z today. Love that you're part of this movement and so excited for all that you're building, all that you go after. I think our movement is stronger by having you in it.
Thank you, Ani. Glad to be here, and thanks so much for having me. It's always great chatting with you. I think you have such a positive energy, and all the best with Climes. I think it's a great way for people to get started. I think it's a great way for people to even start thinking about what carbon emissions mean. I think there's still a lot of confusion around that. So if you can educate people about what carbon emissions are, why we need to even think about them on a day-to-day basis, and just help them out, I think that'll be great.
For sure, that's why we're here. We have to reach 100 million people. So we have what? I think the climate clock strikes down in 2028. So we have 5 years left to make that mass movement happen. We will do it.